As we fly above Turquoise Ridge in the Windy Gap neighborhood of the Mojave Desert town of Yucca Valley, California, let me introduce my sabbatical project from 2014 and 2015. I am Spelman Evans Downer, and these are video performances of me presenting my recently completed sabbatical from Copper Mountain College in Joshua Tree. My project is entitled A History of Southern California Landscape. In my 2-semester sabbatical, I was able to complete 70 paintings that investigate the historic and geologic aspects of Southern California history. Join me and a talented crew of my Copper Mountain College students as they record me on 6 cameras that are live mixed and broadcast to a large TV on set. The time has come finally to have my sabbatical exhibition in my own studio. And I'm here at Gallery Turquoise South in my state-of-the-art painting studio, which has become a 6-camera, multi-camera live mix performance space. But I'm here to tell you there's going to be some entertainment, and everything you see around you is part of the show. It was 16 months straight on the new paintings. All of those are still tied together for the history of Southern California. It's a subject I've been involved with for a long time. It's the place where I grew up. I was born in Pasadena, California in 1954, right in the Arroyo Seco. And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, can I find the Arroyo Seco? Well, I better, because this is all watershed of the entire Southern California coast. And of course, this is the Los Angeles River, and one of the major tributaries is right here. That's the Arroyo Seco. And I went to the Tom Sawyer's Boys Camp. Went up to right where Foothill Boulevard and 210 go through Pasadena and come up into La Cañada. This place right here is the Devil's Gate. There's a Devil's Gate Dam. JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, tied to Caltech is here. What we did was go into the mountains. And we had these great counselors. They were all like surfer dudes that wanted to take kids out and rough them up a little bit. You needed to be scraped up and beat up, and there was none of this, manzy-pansy, you need a release for your parents, you were lucky to get home alive on some of these trips. At this point, I want to show that the mountain range is part of a larger system. And one of the themes in the sabbatical work, or the work I've done for Southern California, one of the things that actually sets Southern California apart from all other parts of the West Coast is what's called the transverse. And after San Bernardino, you hit the San Gabriels, and then you hit Santa Monica, and then you hit the Santa Barbara Mountains. So back to the history of Southern California, landscape. The Spanish obviously came into Southern California, and the first European settlers. There was a large population of Native Americans living in Southern California at that time. And I'm not going to get into the whole genocide of it all. I'm going to start with this one. This really looks at the ranchos that the Spaniards set up that then went into Mexican hands and then became part of America. I'm going to turn it over and read it out. El ranchos españoles cerca del pueblo de Los Ángeles y el misiones del San Gabriel y San Fernando. The basic layout, I kind of knew it, I just really hadn't thought that much about it. Is in San Gabriel Valley, very close to where I grew up, and then the second one over here in the San Fernando Valley. The only town that was even in existence or shortly formed was the El Pueblo de Los Angeles, which is where the LA River comes out of the mountains. And at this point, there's generally year-round water. It was fun to read all the ranchos, and of course the names read like a who's who of big streets in Los Angeles. San Vicente, Santa Monica. I lived on San Pasqual Street. Turns out that's the rancho from Pasadena. I never knew that. El Camino Real, going all the way up through the Missions, all the way up to Northern California. And this is basically what it looked like at that point. This is a piece, same time period, but without the ranchos. And all I'm doing is using the colors of the Spanish flag. So it's a bit of a play on that. Mexico had their own revolution against Spain, and they basically took over the New World holdings that became part of Mexico. Didn't last very long. It lasted about 35 years. Right around then, the California Gold Rush came along. They had about 10, 15 good years. When the Gold Rush started,
they needed food. And a lot of the food came from Southern California, so they had a lot of beef. You know, miners get real hungry. So the Spaniards and the Mexicans that had inherited these ranchos had a boom decade, starting with the gold rush and ending about 10 years later. Suffice it to say that the railroad was probably the next biggest factor in California's development. The railroad, most people don't realize this, when it came across the country and they had the joining of the East and West, it connected to what city? The gold rush, San Francisco. 1870s, railroads are starting to come into Southern California. That opened up new industries. The ranchos had pretty much died off. There were enough beef in America that they didn't need any more food coming from Southern California. People realized there were some big opportunities. One was citrus. So citrus became one of the biggest industries in Southern California. There's a belt, and it's right against the foothills of the mountains. It's up from the coastal plain just a little bit, and it's actually a little warmer up here than it is down lower because cold air settles. So there's a citrus belt that runs across Southern California through the foothills. It almost follows Foothill Boulevard and the Foothill Expressway. And the railroads allowed the citrus to get out to market. Pretty soon somebody invented refrigerated cars that could take the citrus a long way. That caused one of the first booms. Shortly thereafter, they found oil. What do you know? There was oil on the coast of Southern California. A lot of it, all through Venice, down into Redondo Beach. Of course, Long Beach is very famous for its oil deposits. The history of Southern California, it's like a boom-bust cycle. You have 10 years of boom, then it goes bust. So we got citrus, we got oil. What do you think the third one is?
Hollywood.
Real estate. Land, okay? Land itself. Everybody in America wanted to come to the promised land, live in a very benign environment, live near the coast, live places where it never freezed. So there was one land bonanza after another. At this point, can you give me this one painting of the San Gabriel River, San Gabriel Valley?
The bottom one?
Yeah, the bottom one. Okay, this is my real estate painting. This is right here in San Gabriel Valley. I've been talking about Pasadena, I've been talking about the Mission. Places like Chicago Park, you know, they just come out of nowhere. They had a advertising campaign that showed a steamship traveling up the San Gabriel River. And all these people from the East Coast bought lots. It was right in the floodplain. Not a good place to build homes. This one was a total boondoggle and basically failed. A lot of the subdivisions actually were very successful. Funny thing, I mean, basically there were booms and land was very speculative, but if you got in there and you held on to it, you'd do pretty well. And imagine if you bought a place in Venice when it was first on the lot and you still live there, then yeah, pretty amazing. That really drove the economy, and there was a lot of seeking, people looking for new ways of doing things is the other big theme. People come to California because they want to see a different possibility, a new arrangement, and all kinds of people. I mentioned the railroads. The railroads have been going all the way back to the 1870s. By the 1880s, they're doing well. By the 1890s, they're starting to spread. This is the rail network in 1920. It basically connected all of Southern California without the need for highways and a lot of roads. The title of this painting is good. Hold on, just keep it rolling. I believe this one has the same title, and rather than having to turn that one over, you can kind of see some of my technique. I have a small one of this, then I have a medium-sized one, then I do a large one. Thick oil impasto. I haven't talked much about my technique of projecting an old map and then drawing, but that's what I'm doing. This is based on an old map. I'm using the topography that was indicated by the old map. I left that last segment with a very, very brief, very loose overview of some of the railroad developments that created a lot of the momentum and industry and commerce that helped develop Southern California. And then I alluded to the automobile. And believe me, I'm not going to go into the whole history of the automobile. Here we are, 2015, the city is obviously covered by freeways. So since I like to paint place, it's up to me now to include what it looks like, and of course this is the 101, and the 5 is over here, and the 134, and we're going through the Sepulveda Pass down to Sunset Boulevard, always very prominent across. I love just the patterns. This comes in from Santa Monica and then it moves to a true east-west, and then it turns and goes back this way. The Dodgers play over here. We're glad that they came from Brooklyn, by the way. Highways, they're everywhere, up through Cahuenga, San Fernando Valley, Universal Studios. I'm gonna go and look at some of these other paintings. This is San Fernando. Let me pick this up for a second. I really like this one. It's when the San Fernando Valley was agricultural with El Escorpión. See, if you look closely, you can see there's El Escorpión right there. Okay, there's a untrue north-south square on a diagonal, going back to that original rancho. Basically, water was brought to the San Fernando, which was not part of the city of Los Angeles at that time. Later, it was annexed. The whole business about the water project coming down from the Owens River is a whole other torrid story that I won't get into right now, but this painting really addresses that. If you know that history and you see this, you kind of think about it. This is way down in the southern part of the state. This is the Mexican border. That's what we have here as well. Colorado. After I worked on all the coastal rivers, I realized how important Colorado was. It forms the other border of California. In fact, we went to a place called Felicity, which I believe, it shows up on all three of these, but it's quite prominent here. There's the Museum of Granite. It's a whole history of humanity. This is a virgin Colorado River coming down. This gives you the orientation. This is the Gila River coming in here, and it turns past Yuma, comes down. At that point, some of it would flow naturally north to the Salton Sea, and that's why the Salton Sea was there. And then some of it continued down to the Gulf of California. That's what you're seeing here. Is this? It's basically a delta. The river used to flow to the coast. The tectonics cut it off, so some of it flowed out to the Gulf, and some of it actually flowed north. Let me just tell you a little bit about the technique. I take old maps. I take satellite images, I project them, so it's accurate. I draw out, I literally trace a map. So I love projectors. I studied photorealism. All of these are based on photo images that are projected. Once that's in, then I color with art sticks and color pencil underneath. And I use some geologic color coding and other esoteric patterns. Then I get the white paint and I swirl that around in a very expressionistic manner. I use a palette knife. I lift, I stroke, I scrape, very energetic, very expressionistic. I like to tell people if they ask how I paint, I say I combine photorealism with abstract expressionism. And that's almost a direct contradiction. Usually one is diametrically opposed to the other. But for me, they come together. Yes, it's accurate. Yes, it's expressionistic. It still looks like a map. I don't have to paint every little nuance exactly right. I can improvise with a very free form energy. That's what I like. It's got energy, rhythm. There's all this stuff happening. This ocean took me 2 days of crazy, mad drawing. There's no blue paint in here at all. It's all white paint and it's colored pencils. And I don't know how many I wore out. It was like a whole pack of colored pencils. They just kept going at it. And this is meant to convey boats, people, fish, abalones, whatever it is, tuna, whales, birds. There's a lot going on. So that's one of my inspirations, the geologic map, where all of a sudden you can actually see the strata and all the different layers coming together. For us, I've got a seismic piece. This really shows the faults. You can see the San Andreas. It's actually this one here, sweeps through the San Bernardinos and out Cajon Pass. This, if you look closely, you can see there's different colors. The colors are based on the rock layers. It's pretty loose. If you haven't recognized it, this is Santa Monica Bay. Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Venice. Santa Monica Mountains, San Fernando, Verdugo, La Cañada, San Gabriel, Simi Valley. Okay, so that's the geology. That one was a study for this much larger piece. First, yesterday I was talking about the way I always do a small one, and if I like it, I do a medium-sized one, and then when I'm ready to do a big one, I've got the colors figured out. Yeah, this is simplified geology of the Santa Monica Mountains. Pretty happy with this one. You can see all the faults. You can see the rock layers. The yellow is alluvium, right? This is the Los Angeles basin. It's covered by the debris that's being eroded from the mountains. Here's a little cell of rock that happens to be here. And since I know the Santa Monica Mountains, the green is volcanic rock. Most of the Santa Monicas are sedimentary rock, but it actually has volcanics. And the volcanics are indicated by the green. Okay, here's our, are you ready for some seismic activity? Okay, this is one of the bigger sizes. One of the things I wanted to do in the sabbatical was reach a larger scale. I built this building so I could make bigger paintings. And behind me is the biggest one. We're going to end with that. In the meantime, I realized I needed a new module, a nodule module. This one. Okay, this is what happened to me. For my whole career, I've been using this material right here. Okay. You can see it very clearly at this point. Medium density fiberboard. They make high-end cabinets out of this. I use it to make panels for painting. They're thick, they're durable, they're very stable. They're much more stable than a plywood. Plywood always wants to warp, it always wants to go back to a bend. This is particles that are pressed in a factory, and they stay very stable. But they're heavy. Okay, at this point, this is about all I can manage. And I realized I had to do something. Let's put this here. The solution, the indoor bifold door. Okay? That is a door. They turn out, they're super stable, nice and big. This actually weighs less than that, and it's probably twice as big. The next subject I want to talk about is the Colorado River. Yesterday we looked at it. It obviously forms the boundary of California, and I got into a lot of the discussions about the way the Delta has changed and the creation of the Salton Sea. Well, when I looked into the geologic history, I was amazed. It was funny because I was actually reading about the Grand Canyon. There was a show on, a documentary on geology on the Grand Canyon. I love that stuff. So I mean, they go, great. I did my college study of the Grand Canyon when I was at Stanford. So I'm thinking, you know, what do we have that's new since I took the class, and when was that? 1976, approximately. I was amazed to find out that they're now saying the Colorado is a canyon that formed because the river that feeds it adjusted its trajectory across the continent. And the only way you can explain it eating so deeply and still being oxbowed, they figured out, it'll show better on this one. This one's too small. That here's the Colorado right here. Okay, and here's the river coming down into the desert. It used to come to the coast of California. This was a longer run, okay? Off the Colorado Plateau, into the Mojave Desert, across Southern California, and out to sea somewhere in the proto-Los Angeles world. And I never knew that, so that's what this shows. I mean, there's no map of it, it's just a theory, but basically it's because the river shortened that all of a sudden the gradient had a chance to cut through this plateau. Makes perfect sense to me. So we're going to continue on with the geologic theme. At this point, I'm going to introduce the lakes of the Mojave series. This is going back to the ice ages when the lakes were formed. And what you had was a lot of precipitation that was up above. It was much wetter then, we know that from the geologic and the fauna record. There were a lot of ice and glaciers up in the Sierras. A lot of the meltwater would come down into the desert. The backside of the Coast Range had a lot of drainage. Living in the Mojave, we know there's a Mojave River, and it comes off the backside of the San Bernardino Mountains. And then I can start to track my lakes. Okay, this is Emerson Lake. That's the one that had the Landers displacement that I talked about, I think it was 2 segments ago. And then you can come out to Dale Dry Lake. What do you know? This is the Morongo Basin itself, right here. And these are the 2 that are up at the Marine Base. And all of these are still existent. They're not quite as big as they were in the ice ages. Here's Edwards Air Force Base, and this is where the space shuttle lands. There's various theories that the Mojave and all the rivers that come down from the Sierras the Amargosa River right here, that they actually went all the way to the Colorado River. They don't anymore, but there's strong evidence this is Isaacs, okay? This is where the river ends at the moment. I'm going to end this presentation here in the studio with the largest painting. That was the last one of a long series. The trick on this is to spend some time getting ready and practicing, and basically this is a culmination of about a 16-month run of very active painting, where that was basically all I needed to be doing. Last year at this time, I didn't have any cameras set, we didn't do any performances. I used the entire space just as a studio, and basically this place became a paint manufacturing zone. A little backstory, I did some single panels, then I did a double panel. I was very happy with this. I was pretty concerned that I would not be able to paint that much water with pencils. This took 2 days to do this, and you can see the amount of area that I have for the ocean, so I decided I would go back to the dark blue paint, which has my signature, lots of texture and strokes. If you get in here close, you can see all the activity, lots of wind and waves and whales and all that stuff going on. So we came up with the title, More Than All of Southern California. So there you have it. So you get more than all of Southern California, you get some of the Central Coast. I mean, this goes basically to Big Sur. That's the Nacimiento River. It flows into Salinas Bay, so that goes north and out to Salinas. And of course you have the Cuyama River. This is Santa Barbara County. That's definitely back to the Southland. All of the Los Angeles Basin. It's got a really good depiction of the city and the grid work and the drainages. This has the current path of the San Gabriel and comes all the way down to San Diego County. It's very difficult. Basically, it doesn't have the pattern of the coast range and the backside of the mountains that a lot of the rest of the state. It's a bit of a jumble. So I spent enough time down there that I got the jumble down. So that's a look at some of the highlights of my sabbatical project. I want to thank the college and my colleagues for making this highly productive year possible. For those of you who'd like to see more of my work or check out my other exhibitions, please visit SpelmanEvansDowner.com. So here's to another good day in the desert. Signing off. Hasta luego.